You know, scientists tell us it took millions of years for the world's population to reach 1 billion, but then only a century to double that number.
So how long do you think it will take a global population of 5 billion to reach 6? A couple of centuries? 1 century?
Try a little over a decade. Pretty soon the world will be home to 6 billion people, with most of that growth happening in poor developing countries.
How will the world feed and clothe that many people, send them to school, and provide them with adequate health care?
As the CNN report shows, the challenge of enabling people in poor nations to live decent lives as population pressures increase is difficult and urgent.
Let's take a look.
The UN says it doesn't know for sure when the baby will be born that puts the world's population over 6 billion for the first time. But it'll be around a year from now, and June 16th has been chosen as the symbolic Day of the 6 billion. It took millions of years for the world's population to reach 1 billion, and then just over a century to reach 2 billion. In the 1950s, the figure went over 3 billion, 4 billion by the mid-1970s, and 5 billion just 11 years ago in 1987. The countries with the least resources continue to have the highest birth rates. The UN wants to make sure that even the poorest countries can help people make educated choices about how many children they want to have. The real question, according to the UN, is no longer how many people the world can sustain, but what can be done to allow even the poorest people in overpopulated regions to live decent lives.
The fact that we've got to address all of those issues if we're going to have a decent life and decent prospects for the world, for our environment, for our resources, when we reach 7 billion and 8 billion, because we will reach those numbers.
The problem facing the world in the next millennium will be to make sure healthcare and education resources are available to those that need them most, the millions born into poverty every year. David Clinch, CNN.
So even with improvements in healthcare and education, will the world's population just keep growing?
Well, that's what the UN thinks. In about 50 years, we could be sharing the global village with 9.4 billion neighbors.